make certain technology occur so that we can self-sufficiently handle things that our partner doesn't want to do anymore. So when we used to in the 80s and 90s and 60s and 70s give our money to our wife and let our wife budget the money and invest everything, because while we're focusing on making the money, we're focusing on paying getting the money to pay for certain bills, she's making sure stuff is getting paid when it needs to be paid for, which divides the responsibilities. Now in modern times, women expect men to have everything under control, where she doesn't do anything other than sit on the couch and eat bonbons watching Oprah. Not all women do this, but the ones that do it, those are the ones that takes the responsibility and puts it all on one person, and that's not a good thing to do. So whether you live by yourself and you're a solo person, or you're in a scenario where you have a partner or a relative that you take care of the finances for everybody in the house, you can use autopay and benefit from autopay. It just requires you to put money into the account and have that money reoccurringly going into that account, so that when autopay occurs, it doesn't negatively impact the account. The reason why people warn not to use autopay is because the average American is financially irresponsible. You don't make enough money to cover all of the bills. You got to rob Peter to pay Paul. Autopay comes at the most inconvenient time. Then when you don't have enough money to cover the bill, autopay automatically takes it because you don't put a stop to the autopay, and then you don't have enough money going. Coming out of your account going into the auto pay, and that's when you start having the wrong bill paid at the wrong time and not having enough money to cover the thing that you want to have covered. That's one of the reasons why people say don't do auto pay. But in modern times, if you make enough money to cover your bills, you should be able to put auto pay on, and you should be able to have your bills paid for, if you're not impulsively buying irresponsibly, where you end up in a situation where he said having other people's hands in your bank account, yucky. Well, it's not other people, it's a machine. So and you do have other people in your hands in your bank account, your wife, your kids. You have, uh, ironically, yeah, you're going to go and grab the money, but if you got a sister, a brother, an aunt, or uncle, a niece, a nephew, oh, let me get some money from you, and you're giving them unexpected money to cover their financial issues, which negatively impacts your ability to maintain your income, which is the reason why you don't have enough money to cover the bills that you're trying to pay for. Using automatic payments has hidden fees, such as processing fees for using it. That's not true. Actually, depending on what bank that you utilize, autopay is free. And nowadays, because back in the day, they used to charge you $15 to $65 for wire transfers. Now, an ACH transfer, which is like an electronic check, is a situation where you can schedule to have your money transferred to another entity, not even in your banking network, and not be charged for it. So there are no hidden fees if you pay attention, if you do your research, like Michael says when he wants us to go and buy from estate sales and from, you know, auctions. He says, do your research. Like, we can research every single car on the face of the earth before this next auction that happened in a week and a half. But when you start trying to plan your life for the next 12 years, yes, you can do your research and make sure that you have the type of bank account that does not charge you for automatic payments, that does not charge you for ACH transfers, and set it up to where when you, if you do have to pay that amount, let's say it's a $15 a month fee to move money around. If that's what you're going to do, you can still set it up. It's possible. But if you want to have no fees with this particular type of transaction, then it is always equally capable to, here we go with the internet situation again. But when you are dealing with hidden fees, well, it's not hidden fees, because it's only hidden if they told you that you could just transfer for nothing, and then if you transfer for nothing, then all of a sudden you're being charged for the transfer. Back in the day, like 20 years ago, they had the hidden fees thing because they would offer all of these services, but they wouldn't tell you that it came at a cost. Nowadays, they tell you that in order for you to add this service to your account, it will come at a cost. So it's not really a hidden fee anymore. You either accept that fee or you don't. So at this point in time, if you're banking with a bank that offers wire transfers, fantastic. If you're dealing with a bank that offers ACH transfers where you can post date a transaction, fantastic.
this again.
Here we
So,
go with this again. So,
hold on a second.
I'm trying to make sure that we got a backup plan because this internet is acting wild. So, in the understanding that you can set up ACH payments and you can set up automatic payments that don't charge you to have a bill pay occur, where you could also set it up with your billing service. For example, your light bill, you can set up auto payment on that account. You can set up auto payment on your utility bills. You can set up yeah, I know. It is right about that time for all the stuff to start messing up. But you could set up auto payments in a lot of different places. And when you set those auto payments up, when you start traveling to another country, you are capable of the money that you wasn't spending still getting covered. Now, again, that's going to require you, like I told you guys before, and that's all about what we're dealing with today's investment show. So it's still technically on topic, even though we haven't got started with the dividend rotation strategy. But I just wanted to talk about this real quick, because if you've got multiple bank accounts, this is going to be beneficial for you, because the bank account that has the auto pay has no fees to it. ACH transfers has no fees to it. And if you have one bank account that has all of your money going to it, that account will have a set amount of money that gets transferred out to go into the account that has ACH payments coming out of it. That account that has ACH payments coming out of it is not the account that you make purchases with. That's a completely different account. Technically, if you're making purchases off of your credit card, if you have a specific credit card designated for purchases and you have automatic bill pay for that credit card, where you can pay that credit card every month before the billing cycle is up, you can charge certain things on a credit card. You can have a specific bank account dedicated to that, and you can have money going into the bank account that's doing all the automatic payments. Regardless of the fact, you would have, if you're living in America, your standard of living's in America, auto pay is going to be set up in one specific bank account in America, and then you're going to put all the money into that account to cover the bills that are going to be on that auto payment in America. Then you got a separate account. And let's say you're taking us to Japan, money is going to Japan from a completely different account, not interfering with your auto pay at all. Then you can go to Japan and live the life of Riley and not have to worry about the auto pay that's set up, not have to worry about money coming up missing, not have to worry about hidden fees or anything to that effect. You know what I mean? But you have to pay attention to what your bank would charge you, if they would charge you at all, for the services. If there's transaction fees on certain accounts, if there's a minimum quantity of money that you have to have on your account, and if your account goes below that amount, if there's going to be a service fee on the account for that. All of these things you have to pay attention to, because there's no ceiling to how much money you can put into account. They only put a ceiling on how much interest they're going to give you for a certain quantity of money. And then after that, you can do whatever you want to do. So Michael says it shows up as a bank fee of usually $10, and some banks don't. Right, depending on your account balance. Right, so in those situations, and I was just talking about that before I read what you said. So in those situations, if the $10 bank fee is not going to be something that isn't going to mandatorily happen on a regular basis if you don't hold a certain quantity of money on your account. So let's say that they require you to have a minimum $1,000 in your account, and if you have more than $1,000 in your account, they're not going to charge you fees. If that account exists and you're able to do wire transfers, and or not wire transfers, but ACH payments or automatic bill pay payments, you're in a situation where your $1,000 base, in your mind, on your books, that's a zero balance, because that $1,000 base must be there at all times. So when you're trying to make payments off of an account like that, it's everything over $1,000 that can be spent. So when there's $1,000 in there that meets the requirement of zero fees, it is at a zero balance for your spending. In that situation, again, if you still wanted to have that $2,000 to cover your utilities for 12 months off of a $1,200 or $1,500 worth of light bill for the year, you would still put $2,000 more dollars on top of that $1,000. So when it uses notice what I told you, you're paying $120 a month for your light bill, right? When you use it, but you're putting $200 a month in the bank account to cover the bill, right? For your automatic bill pay, which means that you're putting about $80 more per month down than what you actually need to cover the bill, right? Now, your bill isn't going to be $120 a month if you're not home, because everything's going to be off except for the security system, if you have one. And if you don't, nothing's on. No porch light, nothing. Nothing. House is dark 24/7, right? Which means at that point, if you're not using any electricity outside of maybe the fridge running, your light bill might be $10 a month, but you're putting $120 a month away. Well, you're putting in a automatic bill pay for $120 a month there, but you're putting $200 down to cover it. This is called being financially responsible. So in this type of dynamic, yes, you could do auto pay. Because if you know that your light bill is $120 a month when you're home in America, and you say, well, like we said, 10 months, that's $1,200. So 12 months would be another 240. So that would be $1,440. So $1,500. If that's $1,500, but you put $2,000 in the account, that is $500 more than what you need to cover the bill. Set up auto pay for that bill, but that's $2,000 above the $1,000 minimum balance on that account. So that account is holding $3,000 to take $1,500 out. Auto pay is not going to hurt that. You see what I'm saying? I know you're from the old school, Michael, but this is what we talk about. So then again, let's say for water bill and gas bill and everything to that effect, usually your water bill is closer to $40, $50. Your gas bill might be $60. That's another $120 a month. So you might, instead of putting $2,000 in there for the year, you might put $4,000 in there for the year. On top of that $1,000 base, that means that account holds $5,000 so that they can take out $3,000 in auto pay while you're in a whole nother country. This is the reason why this is the reason why I tell you guys that if you're planning it properly, auto pay ain't gonna hurt you. Auto pay gonna hurt you because you put $2,000 there for one thing, and then let's say you impulse buy $800, but you know that you're supposed to have $2,000 worth of money there. You took out $800, you got $1,200, but remember I told you it's $1,440. Now you don't have enough. That's when auto pay hurts, because you're not budgeting your money. He said each budget will be different per person, but each line item on your budget will be different per auto pay. And even though each budget can be different per each person, regardless of how much money you have to pay for your base standard of living, you also understand that if you put more money down than what you need, you got more money there as a blanket to cover any unexpected charges that would happen on a regular occurrence. Then you also have to recognize that we're talking about, hypothetically, if you were traveling to another country and covering your base standard of living in this country. So if your base standard of living is, let's say, $500 a month, and you're going to go to another country, you're going to leave a base amount of money of maybe $800 a month. So you're gone for 10 months. Instead of putting $5,000 away, you're going to put $8,000 there. Set that up on auto pay, and all of your base bills are going to be good to go. But if you put $8,000 there, because the way you use your services at your house would cost you $5,000 a year, if you're not there to use your services, the only thing that is not going to change is your phone bill service, that is a flat rate fee, and your car insurance service, that is a flat rate fee. Those are the only things that are not going to change. That's the only things that's not going to change. And then if you're the kind of person that's going to travel to another country and you're going to do it after your birthday, where the registration of your vehicle has lapsed, so you don't have to have insurance on it, you can drop the insurance premiums on your vehicle altogether and save a year's worth of insurance money, because your vehicle isn't going anywhere. You only have to maintain registration on the vehicle if the vehicle, or you only have to maintain insurance on the vehicle if the vehicle is registered. If the registration expires, you don't have to do anything with that. Then if you come back a year later, you can take those plates and contact the DMV and register those plates. As long as those plates have not been terminated or discontinued by the DMV, they're just going to charge you the $55 for the next year, or $100 or whatever they charge you for your registration for the next year. All of this stuff can be done with proper planning. But the fact is that auto pay is not going to hurt you if you're financially responsible. Auto pay actually helps you if you're financially responsible, because if you have more money than what you need to live in two countries at the same time, then you have enough money to put it in the same spot that auto pay will cover things that your wife won't cover for you. And then if you have a financial partner, if you have a husband or a wife, and there's two incomes coming in, you should be able to put enough money in one spot where one budget will be able to cover the auto pay, and then the other budget will be able to cover living in another country. Because remember, I told you that if two people came together with two separate incomes and they both had the same style of life, they came together and lived on one income, you might be living at 75% of the combined income. And if you were to take the other person's income and invest that, one or two ways that could work out for you is that gives you travel money if you guys are going to travel once a year, or that could give you permanent retirement money, where in 10 to 20 years of your relationship that y'all could just stop and y'all will be making 2 times more money in dividends than what you would be making from working for whoever you're working for right now. And that's some of the things that we talk about when we talk about traveling to other countries. Now, one of the other things that we also talk about here, because we only cover Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we also have on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we have relationship topics, debates, not necessarily debates, but we also have self-improvement, personal developments, negotiations, networking, and then also your ability to improve your presence for your employer, negotiate raises, promotions, vacation packages, severance packages, if you're planning on quitting or retiring from your company, all of the ways that you can do this better, where you don't just take what they give you, you can negotiate a little bit more, because your value is your value. You know what I mean? There is going to be a limit to how much you're going to get from them, but if you just take what they offer you, they're going to offer you the bare minimum. But you can ask for a little bit more. Even if they're getting rid of you, you can ask for a little bit more, and you qualify for that. Right? Michael says most people have 2 brain cells, both fighting for third place in life. True. And that's one of the reasons why the show is here, is because if you have at least one brain cell that tells you to come to this show so that you can learn other ways to make more brain cells work, then you have the capabilities to find an alternative way to make, save, and invest money, which allows you to take a lot more stress off your life and allow you to put more effort towards your financial success, which gives you more success in your personal life. So if you were the kind of person that's like, oh, I can't do auto pay, then that puts you in yet another problem, because if your bills in America are not on auto pay, you're in another country calling America trying to pay bills over the phone every month, which is going to be complicated, because if you go to Japan, you're going to be in the middle of the night in Japan trying to call an American service while they're open so that you can pay for your American service when everybody else in your house is asleep, so that then you can get up in the daytime and live life with them. That's complicated. That's complicated when you could have simply budgeted, because that's actually part of your long-term goal. If your long-term goal is to spend 1 year in another country, if that's your long-term goal, then what you're going to do is you're going to set it up to where if in 5 years we're going to go spend a year in, say, South Korea, fine. Some of the things you want to do: start preparing advance paying bills, or setting up an auto payment option where you're putting more money into your account than what you need to for that particular type of activity. Rerouting all extra money that is not going to be going into stocks, bonds, and real estate and whatever to the auto pay scenario that is not the emergency funds, so that when you do get ready to travel, you already have money being wired from her account to his account, or money being wired from her account and his account to the joint bank account, so that the joint bank account is on auto pay. But think about the joint bank account being on auto pay. If basic bills are going on a joint bank account for auto pay. His direct deposit in his account and her direct deposit in her account doesn't impact that, but their automatic wire transfer to the joint account to make sure that the money is there for the automatic bill pay, that is the ability to make sure that the money keeps flowing. Then the other idea about this is once a month. You want to have 1 or 2 months, some bills that come at the first week of the month, like rent. You've got some bills that come because either rent or mortgage is between the first and the fifth on most places. Then you've got utility bills that, depending on when you moved in, depends on when the utility bills are due. Sometimes it's at the end of the month, sometimes it's at the beginning of the month, but then you have other bills in the middle of the month, right? Credit card bills on the second and third week of the month. So you have bills scattered throughout the month. The smartest way to do it is to put enough money there to cover the next 30 days worth of bills, so that when autopay gets set up, as you direct deposit money into the account, you are replacing the money that was taken out from autopay. That gives you the ability to make sure that everything continues to work. But likewise, if you're going to stop working in America and then travel, you want to make sure that the quantity of money that's in that account is going to cover 12 months worth of you being gone, 13 months just to be safe. Because you think about the month that you're going to stop working, that's a mid-month, that 2 weeks, 3 weeks there, you're going to leave, you're going to be gone for 12 months consecutively, right? Then you're going to come back, and that's another 2, 3 weeks there. So that's like 13 and a half months. If you have a guaranteed way to get back into work on your way back, then you've got the ability to just slide right back into work. But if you have to find another job, then you might need to, instead of doing 12 months away, you might need to do 12 months away plus 6 months to get back to work, which means that you're setting up an 18-month vacation from your current job. Remember the show I gave you guys for the early retirement plan? That's what it's about. It's the ability to plan for a big change. You know, it's safer to make such big changes when you are and with landlords now. It's even good to do this with a landlord, because nowadays, especially major rental properties, everything is online. So if they're like, oh, rent renewal, you're going to be gone, you're not going to be here, but you've already advance paid them the rent for the entire lease, they're good, right? When renewal comes, you're going to get an email, you're going to click a button, you're going to be online, you're going to verify renewal of the lease and make sure that you continue to send auto pay to them to cover for the until you get back. Negotiate individuals, hey, I want an 18-month or 24-month lease, where you're going to have a 2-year lease and you're going to be gone for 18 months of that, or at least unemployed for 18 months of that, but the bills are going to be paid for a long stretch. There isn't a reason why autopay doesn't work for you, unless you're financially irresponsible. He says, have a 5-year plan. Good idea. Yeah, planning for your future is always going to be a good idea. That's one of the reasons why we're talking about this, the dividend rotation strategy for the next 2 months, because if you're planning for your future, you're trying to figure out what works best for you. Does me putting my money in one spot and leaving it there work best for me, or does me flipping it on a regular basis work best for me? If I'm not able to remember to hit all my aces, then it might be better for me to let it sit, right? If I got too many things going on where I can't hit all my aces, then I might want to let it sit. But at the same time, if you're going to let it sit, then you have to put enough money there where it's going to make you the quantity of money that you're hoping to make. That's the goal. That's the end goal. That's the result, is put it in enough places where it's turning enough profits for you so that you don't have to struggle. The goal is not to struggle. The end goal of every person's life that watches this show is to not to struggle. So a 5-year plan is a fantastic idea. You're not going to do anything next year based off of this year's efforts. This year's efforts is to get your shit together from last year. So if you wasn't watching a show last year, this year is to get your shit together. start catching up on back bills, pay down a lot of debt, invest extra money. Don't start financing new stuff that you don't already have under control. Just lock down what you already got locked down and start taking the extra money from paying off all past debt and use that money to invest in other places to generate more money for you, and decide on your 5-year plan. Your 5-year plan puts you in a position where you're financially stable. Your 5-year plan puts you in and you're financially stable because you know that your bills are going to at least be covered for the next 2 or 3 months. That is going to be a good 5-year plan. And then after that, your next observation is your 10-year plan is going to be what are you going to double down on your investments, or are you going to quit your job? Are you going to maintain the same? And then your 15-year plan, are you going to dial back on work, or are you going to maintain the same? And then your 20-year plan is let's stop. Let's stop. Because you can, if you do it right, stop in 10 years. But the only problem with that is that depending on how much you invest, you're going to make enough money in your investment opportunities to have enough money to live off of for your current standard of living. And not everybody is satisfied with their current standard of living. They want more, which also means that if you want more, it's better for you to aim for double what your current standard of living is as a 20-year goal, so that at any point in time over 10, you can change jobs if you need to, but you don't have to. You can roll back hours on your job if you need to. You don't have to. But between 15 and 20 years, you can stop, because you will be making more than 100% of your current standard of living. And anything above that will give you the ability to upgrade your standard of living just a little bit after you've retired, where you can leverage your stock portfolio to buy a house and then use the dividends to pay off the loan. You can leverage it to buy a house and a car if you're just going to buy you a simple house. Because if you build $500,000 in 10 years, in 15 years, you're at what, $700,000, $750,000. You can leverage that for $400,000 and go and buy you a $300,000 house and an $80,000 car, overpriced car by far. But just say hypothetical, it's all paid for now, bought up, paid in full, and now the profits from the platform or from the portfolio is paying for that $400,000. But notice, I said get $400,000 out of $700,000, spend total $380,000 of it. You still got $20,000 in your pocket, but your stock option is paying for the entire 400K. You notice that other 20 grand could be going towards lights, water, car insurance. And when you think about how your phone bill, your light bill, all of that stuff isn't going to cost you more than $400, $500 a month. That's $5,000 a year, $6,000 a year. That 20 grand would last you at least 3 years. See what I'm saying? So, and in that dynamic, you could put that 20 grand into a bank account. You got a brand new car sitting at the house. You got a brand new house sitting there. You can leave the country. You've got 20 grand sitting in a bank account on auto pay, where your basic bills are going to be covered for the next 3 years. You're only going to be gone for 1. You can go, come back, and your whole standard of living is good for 2 more years before you have to start figuring out what you're going to do with yourself, unless, of course, the stock option has paid everything else off. Do you see how this is possible, Michael? This is really possible. Is that money is useless if it's not used. Money needs to generate more cash. Well, you have the people who live from paycheck to paycheck, where their money's sole purpose is to pay off their debts and prevent them from being homeless. But if you start spending your money more wisely, you're not wasting a lot of money on a lot of stuff that you don't need just because it tickles your fancy. And then you will spend a lot more money putting it away in places where your money will make more money for you, so that you don't have to worry about the financial loss. If you're putting your money in a place where you're making more money for you, then you're going to be elevating your financial status. And that will give you the freedom that you need to cover a lot more stuff. Because as long as you're living from paycheck to paycheck, there is a hypervigilance that's going to be there. There's going to be a fear of, what if I lose my job next month? What if I don't make enough money next month? What if I don't have enough clients next month? You're going to have your highs and your lows. It's always going to be there. you know. But yes, you do want your money to generate revenue, but you can't have 100% of your money in a place where it's always generating revenue all the time to the magnitude where some of your money is not stagnant. Because if you put 100% of your paycheck into your stock portfolio, and your stock portfolio is operating dividends, guess what's not making money for you? The dividend payout. The dividend payout is going to be sitting stagnant until you deposit it into your account so that you can use that dividend payout to pay for your standard bills. There's going to be a percentage of your money somewhere, whether it's 20% based on dividend rotation strategies, payouts, or more than that based on emergency funds being easily accessible, because a deposit from your stock portfolio might take 3 to 7 days. You might want to have money already accessible in your bank account. Then you might want to have money at your house in case there's a power outage and there are no ATM machines. So the money sitting at the house in a safe is not going to generate revenue, but it does give you financial security. Peace of mind is what you're getting from that, which is going to be the loss of growth for that capital, and peace of mind for the money that's sitting in a high interest savings account or a health savings account that allows you to benefit from those in other ways. And then you have what you're getting off your stock portfolio. Now, if you're the kind of person that's going to follow one of my other plans, which was put the majority of the money into your portfolio, then take the dividends, pay for the bills, and then take what's left over and put it into your health savings account and start paying for your health insurance and other such medical bills that you're already paying for cash up front out of pocket out of your health savings account, and then use the health savings account as a tax deduction, which will cover some of the dividends from the stock option. You actually would be spending less money on taxation and being able to take care of more of your own stuff, which would benefit you in the long run. 70% of your total assets you can leverage with the bank, right? But 70% of your assets you can leverage your stock portfolio with anybody. You don't have to leverage it with the bank. The bank doesn't always give you the best offer, but the bank is the first place to go, but you can go anywhere and leverage your money, because the contract with the lender is that based on whatever percentage rates they're going to charge you, that if you pay the amount, they will give you. But most places will do 70% or 65%. A new car today will cost you $55,000. The average price, the market average price, that's true. But you also can find a brand new car for $15,000, because a Nissan Versa isn't all that expensive if you get a standard shift car. But yes, if you're trying to get like a mid-level car, $55,000 is ideal. But you could technically go and get you a $30,000 car or an $18,000 car, a base model vehicle, if you get what is called an economy size car, good miles or high miles, not fancy, not flashy. And that's two different things. It's not fancy, meaning that it's not like all these bells and whistles with sunroofs, moonroofs, automatic everything, and then so it's not flashy, not fancy. It's not like a name brand something. Or every car has a name brand, but it's not like a highly popular, prestigious name brand like Jaguar. It's an average name brand like Nissan, Toyota, Civic, Ford, Dodge, something like that. Where an economy size car like a Fusion or a Focus or something like that, where you could get some for like $20,000 or $30,000, but it's still something that you can get cash up front. You say that's why I hate debt, but debt isn't always your enemy. Debt can always be your friend. Debt can be your friend specifically because if you borrowed money leveraging 70% or less of your stock option to pay for certain things that got paid for, they're not looking at what you bought. They're looking at your profit money paying off your loan money, because loan is not taxable income. And any taxable income that pays on a debt is tax deductible. And that's why rich people don't hate debt. Rich people love debt, because if they borrow money from person A to buy an item B, they can then claim on their taxes that they're paying off a debt see with the money that they got from somewhere else that's supposed to be taxable, and that is identified as a tax blanket. So you don't want to just make pure cash and then go and buy your own stuff. You want to make pure cash, invest it somewhere so that your cash can make more cash. And that way you don't have to worry about the principal anymore, because when you're spending the dividends off of the principal, no matter how much of the profits from the principal you spend, the principal never gets touched. So if the principal is paying you $10,000 every month and you're spending $10,000 or less every month, you're going to continue to get $10,000 a month for the rest of your life. And not a lot of people can imagine what the fuck would they do with $10,000 a month every month. Pay all your bills, and the first thing they say after they pay all their bills is help out a friend, help out a family member, do something for a kid. They run out of shit to do for themselves if they're getting $10,000 a month. But then think about it. If you're getting paid $10,000 a month, your house is already bought and paid for. There's no mortgage. Your car is already bought and paid for. There's no finance there. But you're getting a $10,000 a month deposit every month. What the fuck are you paying for? Your utilities and phone bill and everything still under $500 a month. So you really only need $6,000 a year, but you're getting $10,000 a month. That's when you're traveling the world. I would rather be a poor person, debt-free today, and know that no one is knocking on my door or calling a place of work. Well, I respect your logic, but I would prefer to have enough revenue coming in so that I can leverage it to get the things that I need in life. And then the money that is paying for that debt, the debt is being paid for on its own. It's like, I would prefer to have a system that generates revenue to pay off whatever debt that I decide to create without me having to work for it. And I feel like that's better than being poor. I personally believe that living from paycheck to paycheck is the worst lifestyle to have. No matter how much debt-free I am, I'm still broke if I don't make enough money for next month. And I'm still going to be homeless if I don't pay my bills next month. By the month after that, I'm still going to be homeless. It makes more sense for me to be capable of generating revenue for ever by putting it somewhere where money makes money for me. That's the smartest way to go. Being debt-free doesn't make you financially stable, and being debt-free doesn't mean that you have money coming in to cover next month's bills. Being debt-free means that you don't owe people that you can't afford to pay. But if you have debt that you have generated because you have money that will pay for that debt without you struggling, that's actually more effective than just living debt-free. So that's the average. That's the average, not luxury. That is not the that's the yes. So that $55,000 is the average, and the average is the difference between some of the most expensive cars that are sold versus the cheapest cars that are sold. That's the average. But you have to understand, if you're looking at the market minimums, not the market average, you still have brand new cars that are close to $10,000. You still have brand new cars that are $15,000. They're not electric cars, but they are very good economy style cars that you can get. They're not sports cars or anything to that effect. They're four-door vehicles that will get you where you want to go, but they're not $55,000. So I mean, yeah, I agree with you. Never touch a principle. Yes, never touch a principle. Michael's got a lot of wisdom, y'all. But and I value everything that Michael has to say. Jolin also has a lot of wisdom when he comes to the show. I value what these men have to say. It's just that Michael comes from the old school, so he's got about 30 or 40 years more life than I've got. And 30 or 40 years ago, his frame of mind was the perfect way to stay out of trouble financially. It was the perfect way to stay out of trouble financially. But times have changed over the past 40 years, and now his logic is still sound. But for the average person, he could, if he has the income coming in, leverage more of his income into profit generating investments where the profits pays off the debt that he generates. So he's not messing with his principal. The higher his principal gets, the more dividends he's getting back. The dividends that he pays on his debt dictates how much debt he has. So if you're building up your leverage, if you're making $5,000 or $7,000 a month, you're putting that into your stock portfolio, and your stock portfolio is giving you back 10%, and out of that 10%, you're giving back $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month. The more money that you're getting back every month, that's the more money that you can spend. And out of the money that you spend, if you're getting back $4,000 a month, and your standard of living is $2,000 a month, you got $2,000 extra dollars a month. If you're going to leverage something that cost you $150,000 a month, that $2,000 a month will cover that loan. Because if you mortgage the house for $120,000, close to 7% interest, you're looking at about $1,100 a month for your mortgage. If you're getting $2,000 a month on top of your standard of living is paid for $2,000, but you can also mortgage a second house doing that. But if you mortgage a second house doing that, you can put a tenant in that second house. That tenant can pay for the mortgage. But you can pay for the mortgage until the tenant gets in there, and then the tenant starts paying for the mortgage. But now you got an extra $2,000 a month plus the difference from what the tenant paid, which still, leveraging debt, because you got that $120,000 house. That's debt. Your house, that's debt. But $4,000 worth of stock option to pay for it, $4,000 of dividends to pay for it, not a $4,000 principal. You might have a $400,000 principal at 10% to pay you $4,000 worth of dividends. See what I'm saying? Because $400,000 at 10% would be paying you $40,000 a year, and out of $40,000 a year, you'd be getting something close to $4,000 a month. You know what I mean? Is there nothing wrong with debt if you are responsible? But most people are not, or at a loss. He is right. He is definitely right. There's a lot of people who are not responsible with their money, and they're not responsible with their debt. So and that's one of the reasons why, I do agree. Until you become financially responsible, not having debt is the best way to go. Pay off all of the debt that you have. Do not cancel any of your credit cards. Just pay them off, and then minimize the usage of them. That's how you improve yourself. I agree with him on that. Then when you start becoming financially responsible and budgeting and investing and building up that principle, then you can start living off of that principle. I strongly look, Michael's got a lot of wisdom. He's got a lot of wisdom. You can go and buy a car from an auction, but it's dangerous if you don't know how to fix a car yourself. Michael knows how to fix his own car, and he might know a couple mechanics that'll fix the car for him. You can go and get a car. If that's not going to be your daily driver to work, you can go and get a car. But if you go and get one out the auction, it is not guaranteed. Unlike getting it from a certified pre-owned dealership, where if you go to Toyota and buy a Toyota, if the Toyota don't work, Toyota gives you another Toyota. You go to the auction and you get that car, and 3 weeks later, the car don't run no more. You have to pay to fix it for whatever's wrong with it. That's the difference between getting it from an auction versus getting it from a dealership. Yes, it's cheaper to get it from an auction. Yes, if you do enough research and you hit the right car, yes, you can find a car that never lets you down. But at the same time, if you go and pick up a car from an auction, you are buying a higher risk. If you're willing to take that risk, you might be satisfied with the results. But at the same time, if you don't want to take that risk, it is responsible for you to just pay the difference and get that certified pre-owned vehicle. But if you had enough money to buy that certified pre-owned vehicle cash up front, $55,000 to buy a certified pre-owned vehicle cash up front, you could spend $10,000 at the auction and go and buy the vehicle, bring it to a mechanic, and then pay the mechanic to fix everything that's wrong with it, and not spend more than $10,000 more on a vehicle out of the auction, where the difference between a brand new vehicle and a vehicle out of the auction would be absolutely nothing, because the money that you would have spent on a brand new vehicle, you spent on a car out of the auction. The money that you saved, the extra $10,000 or $20,000 that you saved by fixing the one that you own versus making payments on the one that you finance, would be a complete improvement. That I do agree with. And his logic, you don't need that much knowledge about a vehicle if you're willing to pay the difference to fix it. you know that you want to get you right now, we're in 2026. If you wanted to go get you a 2022 out of the auction and you wanted to go and buy a car for 30 grand and you had 30 grand and you go to the auction and you go pick you up a 2022 out the auction for 10 grand and you put 10 grand into it to fix it, and that's $10,000 left over that you don't have to, you could put that aside as emergency funds for the car. And that's perfectly fine. But if you're taking your last $10,000 to go pick up a car out the auction where after you buy that car, you're broke, now you're paying for car insurance and everything to that effect, and then the car breaks, and now you got to borrow money to go and fix the car. It is better for you to go and finance a car or lease a car and then have the dealership deal with that, the maintenance fees. Make sure that the maintenance is included in the cost of the monthly payments on the car, because it will be costly for you otherwise, because you're paying notes and it's still broke. Or you own it and it's still broke and you're still walking. Either way, it's not good. He said, right, I started making money at 9. Yeah, but he started making money at 9 years old. He's like 71, 72 years old. So he's been doing this for over 60 years. That's more than a lot of us being alive. He said, with the paper route and everything, right? And he said, yeah, and then the repo man showed, yeah, because if you don't have enough money to pay your car, the repo man gonna come get it. And while you can lock your car in your garage, if you ever leave with the car, they snatch it up off the street. They'll snatch it up out your yard because you forgot to put it in the garage. Some of them will break into your backyard and come and steal it out the backyard. They will come and get it. And now you got to fight the repo man because you're not paying the payments all the time. So I just tell y'all to put it in a position where it's either in your budget to pay those monthly notes, cost of doing business, or buy cash up front. The millionaire mindset is buy the vehicle cash up front. Don't buy it until you can afford to buy it cash up front. And then don't buy it until you have 3 times more than the value of the car to buy it. So if you're trying to buy a $10,000 car, you want to have $30,000, you go buy the car cash up front. You still got $20,000. Otherwise, you might want to just catch the bus or pay your homie gas money to take you places. Just be responsible. That's right. That's right. But what if you could generate an extra few $1,000s in income over the next 2 months, though? I'm not talking about a side hustle, because we got a lot of those. We've been talking about a lot of those throughout the month. But a strategy that works directly from your investment portfolio. So I'm talking about a plan to target an ambitious goal of around $5,000 in gross dividend income in just the months of February and March of 2026. So if your cash is just sitting there in a savings account, losing the fight against inflation and taxation, and you want a concrete step-by-step trading plan to potentially boost your income, you need to see the strategy that I'm about to break down. So this isn't just a theory. We've been doing it all year. We've been doing it all last year. It is a detailed blueprint that uses a core satellite portfolio to execute a dividend capture rotation. So I'm not just going to show you the plan. I'm going to run the numbers through detailed performance simulations, showing you the best case scenario and the worst case scenario, and the hard realities of when this particular strategy goes wrong. So I want you to stay tuned. This channel is all about building wealth through discipline, data-driven investing, and everything else that I give you advice on is about helping you make better decisions in your personal life so that your decisions don't cost you as much money, so that your standard of living is less without having to sacrifice the value of life, which aids you in your ability to make responsible money. Because if you're making money out of desperation, you're willing to accept less and do more just to get it now, instead of being able to strategically negotiate for more and do less so that you can get more out of your effort, where you can negotiate and take more time to get the best deals, get more money out of the best deals, and then be able to leverage that money even further to give you more time in between deals, which also means you're not working until you drop. He says, my newest money adventure, still doing homework on it. Got to do lots of homework. What is your newest money adventure? Let me know what your newest money adventure is while we go through this, and then I'll probably cover it on the show and see. I mean, if it's a secret, you ain't gotta tell me. But I mean, if you've got a plan of action where you're like, oh yeah, I was thinking about X, Y, and Z kind of idea, I can come up with a hypothetical different scenario so that nobody else is diving in on your investment opportunity, and kind of crunch some numbers and give you kind of an idea of a different kind of similar style scenario. That way, you can kind of see how that would play itself out, um, uh, which kind of gives you some ideas as to what to do and where to get your sources of success from. Now, in this show, we don't do get rich quick schemes. Okay, never. It's never a get rich quick scheme. We're always talking about it's a 20-year plan kind of idea, but it happens in phases. You can have a 5-year goal, a 10-year goal, a 15-year goal, and a 20-year goal. You can even have sub goals like the next 6 months, what you're going to do so that you can track your accomplishments and go straight into your first 12 months of success and then kind of double down. Oh, that one. Okay, so one of the things that I looked at with bid for assets is you have to look at properties in your area. It is a listing site. These properties are for sale, but the condition of the properties are not guaranteed. It went up for auction, and the photos that they might have used may not be from this year. So what you would have to do with this particular scenario is you would have to take a look at certain properties that are potentially up for auction on that list. How many days do you have to put your bid up? Take time to go to the property and at least make sure that the property is still standing. Because unfortunately, while they have a picture of a house there, the picture of the house might not, because you're not buying the house, you're buying the plot of land that the house is on. And if the house is no longer there, which is probably one of the reasons why the property is so cheap, you can find yourself buying the picture and then inheriting dry land, thinking that there's a house on there. So my best option for you for that, at least in the forefront, without actually investing in and winning bids, or how many times do you bid and then lose the bid, and if they charge you the fee for the bid, but if you don't get it, that they don't charge you a fee, like all of that stuff. I haven't gone through all of that, but just the core aspect of it is that you have to look at certain properties, commute the like area, and then go check it before you bid on it. Make sure the building is still standing before you bid on it. The other problem that you're going to have for it is when you're bidding on the property, the other thing you need to be checking for is any liens on the property. You need to be making sure that, and liens on a property is not just liens of debt. You have code enforcement issues. If the grass got too high, if the house is vacant because of it was condemned or something like that, because any issues that happens to the property, you have to fix those issues once you claim possession of the property until you are able to put the property back up on the market. If you pick up certain properties, mobile homes and manufactured homes, they're going to have less value than actual houses and apartments and condos. So you have to also pay attention to those, because while the manufactured homes and the mobile homes are going to be cheaper, their value is less. So if you're going to sell them immediately after you get them without renovating them, you're not going to get as much, but you might be able to still negotiate more than what you paid for it. But whatever holding costs that you're going to have for it until you get rid of it, that's going to be another issue. When it comes down to turning those things into rental properties, though, the dynamic there is that it doesn't really matter what you're getting. If you're not getting rid of it and you're not leveraging it for capital, you can actually hold that property, rent it out, as long as the market in that area is looking for a tenant. So then you're really gauging what's the market rate in that area for that style of home and how much you're about to pay for it, to determine how many months or how many years will it take for you to recoup your investment on that property and then start turning a profit off of it. So there is a lot of numbers that you're going to have to do. Baseline numbers are going to be in percentages, because if you do it in percentages, it doesn't matter how much the property is. you know that if you put this much money on a property, it's going to be this much of a percent increase over this much period of time. So you know that your return on investment might be this number of years based on percentages. And then it would be faster for you to crunch the numbers. But one of the things you're going to have to do is commute to those places. And you're saying restrict my range, any property in 1 hour of me. Yeah, depending on where you are. Yep. Because then the other issue that you're going to have a round trip. Then you have to make sure, because like I looked at that website, and one of the properties was being rented out allegedly. I can go and drive past the place, but since the property owner is selling it and it's got a tenant in there, I can't go do a walkthrough of the house before I buy it. You know what I mean? I have to get permission from the residents and get permission from the seller. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff that you gotta do to get on stuff like that. I just want vacant land to clear. Now, if you're just doing vacant land, that site is fantastic for you, because it doesn't matter what condition the land is in, as long as if you're looking for developed land versus undeveloped land, that's probably the only difference. But if you're just getting land for the sake of having land, you can grab a whole bunch of land like that. You're just looking at what the bid price is. Now, one of the things you're going to be looking at with your bidding problem is how often do people bid double the price, double the starting price. Because what I saw there, it looked like a blind bid. It wasn't like eBay, where you put up a bid, and then if somebody outbids you, it notifies you, and then you go back up and put up a higher bid. If that's the case, then you could potentially go back and forth with somebody until you reach a satisfactory rate. Another issue you're going to have to deal with that, if you're going back and forth with it and somebody else wants it, you have to look at how much money you have available versus what is the value of the property. If you're trying to keep it under 30% of the value of the property, you want to get kind of a market estimate of what the property could be worth, and then how much money you might be willing to pay for it. So if the property could be $150,000 and you're willing to put 30% down, then you're willing to put up $50,000 for the property, which means you have $50,000 to bid, and you might be able to bid. He said 5-minute bids usually with $100 increase. So that means that you're going to be doing back and forth action until the property is sold. But I seen some of the bids, it was like 2 to 5 days long. So I'm like, shit, I'm trying to get down to the last hour and be like, I'm not trying to put my bid up and then I gotta go check it on Friday, put my bid up on Tuesday, go check it on Friday and see if I won. I'm going on Friday and putting up a bid. But let's get back to stocks, okay? Because while we're not dealing with those get-rich-quick schemes, and even this isn't a get-rich-quick scheme, this is a longevity situation. You know, we're going to be talking about smart tactical strategies, just like what Michael's going into, that can supplement a long-term portfolio, right? So I looked at those. Most being Florida liens. Yeah, well, Florida's a tax deed state, so you're going to have a lot more properties that are going to be accessible in a tax deed state than what you would in a tax lien state. So going into a tax deed state, you can pick up the property for back taxes. It goes into auction, and you just pay the back taxes. Typically, the back taxes is going to be 3 years or more worth of back taxes. And back taxes is usually between 5 and 20% of the property. So you're going to be seeing that $500,000 house with back taxes are like $20,000, and then the auction starts at the $20,000 of back taxes. If you're willing to spend $50,000 on a $500,000 house, that's 10% of the property. So you're going to argue with somebody else back and forth in the auction until you reach 50. And if they quit beforehand, you got a house. See what I'm saying? But you're looking at the after repair value of the house, not the market rate value of the house right now, because if the house needs to be renovated, that's another 50 grand. But if you're able to get the deed for the house and then leverage the house for the 60% of the after repair value of the house, you can take out a mortgage for the house for like $300,000 or $400,000 for a house that could be sold for $500,000, and you could put up 50 grand for that and get back all of the money that it took for you to buy it, renovate it, sell it, have some money there for a holding cost, and the difference could be paying for the notes on the property until you sell it, where you pocketed 50 grand somewhere in there, and then the sale pays off the loan. You can do that. Hard money loans. But today we're getting into one of the tactical approaches, that is the dividend capture strategy, which we were talking about real estate for a while here, but we're talking about the dividend capture strategy. And this is specifically where we're going to be building a complete trading plan for a 2-month window of February and March. Now, this is going to be a masterclass for investors who have a solid foundation and are looking for ways to make their capital work harder. So we're going to blend two powerful ideas. First, the core satellite portfolio model, which gives you a fortress of stability for most of your wealth. And second, a highly active, high risk dividend capture rotation for the similar satellite part of your portfolio. So I need to be crystal clear right from the start that this is going to be an advanced strategy. It's not for beginners. Beginners, I would recommend that you start off with buying low cost stocks with high dividend payouts and holding them. We've got a laundry list of them on our show that we run through on a regular basis so that you guys know which ones to grab. And then as you build that up, you can start taking some of your profits and using that for the dividend rotation strategy, which is a fantastic idea, because if your principal is always there and your dividends are rotating around, the more dividends you get, the more you rotate. The more success you have, the more the more you keep investing, right? That helps you with your surplus. Now, you also got to remember, this is definitely not going to be free money. This is money that you put into it with the expectation to get money out of it. So the risks are going to be significant, and we're going to spend a lot of time breaking them down with the complete transparency of whether or not you end up deciding to feel comfortable with utilizing the strategy for yourself. But if you want to start taking a look at it and doing your research on it, then that is a good place to start. So what I'm going to be giving you guys today is a comprehensive guide where the philosophy is the specific stocks on our watch list, like MITT, GOVT, and ABR. We have the calendar of trades and the potential outcomes, both good and bad outcomes. So by the end of tonight's show, you'll have a full understanding of how to build and execute a plan like this for yourself, armed with realistic expectations. So before we even think about chasing a single dividend, we have to build our house on solid rock. So in portfolio management, that rock is the core satellite strategy. Picture our satellite as a solar system, right? At the center is going to be the sun, which is massive, stable, and predictable, providing the gravity that holds everything together. This is the core of your portfolio. Orbiting it are smaller planets and asteroids, which is the satellite area of the core satellite system, which are made more dynamic and have their own unique characteristics. Now, this is exactly how we can structure our investments for a mix of safety and opportunity. So the core of your portfolio makes up the vast majority of your assets, usually between 70% and 80%. Though some conservative investors might push that to 90%. The goal of the core isn't to hit home runs. It is a goal to get you on a base every single time, year after year. It is built for stability, long-term growth, and wealth preservation. Now, this part of your portfolio should be in low cost, broadly diversified index funds or ETFs. Think of the assets that track major benchmarks like S&P 500 with other tickers like VOO or IVV, or a total stock market fund like VTI, right? These investments give you exposure to the whole market. They're incredibly cheap, and they capture the steady compounding growth of the economy over decades. Your core is going to be your anchor. It's what lets you sleep at night during the market swings, knowing that the foundation of your wealth is solid. Now, let's talk about the exciting part, the satellite area. This is the other 20-30% of your portfolio. This is your tactical zone. It's where you can take calculated risks and chase better performance, or in our cases today, you generate more income. The satellite portion is where you might invest in specific sectors that you're bullish on, like tech or renewable energy, individual stocks that you've researched heavily on, or, as we've been doing, active trading strategies. The beauty of the core satellite model is the synergy. So the large stable core provides a powerful buffer between the risk and the reward. So if a high risk satellite investment doesn't work out, and some won't, it doesn't sink your entire financial future. The loss is contained to a small manageable piece of your overall wealth. But when these satellite strategies do succeed, they can give your portfolio's overall average return a serious boost, generating extra income or accelerating your growth beyond what the market indicates and what other people are being provided. Wow, nasal drip. So our dividend capture plan for February and March 2026 will live entirely in this satellite space, carving out a piece of our portfolio specifically for this high activity. We're going to be dealing with high potential income strategies while our core remains untouched, just diligently compounding in the background. The discipline separation is absolutely critical to manage the risk. So, by the way, if this idea of structuring, excuse me, if this idea of structuring a portfolio for both safety and opportunity makes sense to you, I want you guys to do me a favor. If you haven't done so already, hit the button for liking and subscribing to the channel, because it tells YouTube that this is the kind of detailed strategy that you and other serious investors would definitely want to see. If you're watching us on Twitter, or if you're watching us on Twitch, also hit that follow button as well as hit the heart button, because it lets those platforms know that you are benefiting from hanging out here for the next few hours as we talk about ways to improve our financial positions. And I appreciate you helping the channel by liking and subscribing to the channel. Look, he said 2 more sneezes. I don't think so, bro. I don't think so. I had a tickle, and then I had a nasal drip, and then I had a sneeze. A lot of people do like 3 or 4. No, I get 1 good one. Now, since we've gotten through our framework, let's zoom in on the engine that we're putting into our satellite allocation, the dividend capture rotation. On the surface, the idea seems simple. You buy a stock right before it pays a dividend, you collect the payment, and then you sell the stock. Sounds easy, right? The reality is a lot more complex, and full of traps. So to succeed, you have to understand the mechanisms perfectly. He said, it must be the Coke. Nope, don't have any Coke. I actually had Dr. Pepper the other day. Well, last week, week before last, and then after that we had the Arizona tea. Now all we got is water. I know what you're referring to. You're referring to that Scarface. Nah, I actually just have a mustache, and unfortunately, getting old, my genes have changed, and I'm growing some really long nose hair, and I have my mustache tickling my nose hairs, and that is causing me to have issues. Which is why in a lot of shows, you'll notice that I keep fidgeting with my face throughout the show. And then the next day, you see I shaved. Because it doesn't just get long. I don't have the kind of hair that gets long and comes down. I have the kind of hair that gets long and sticks out. So that sticks straight up into my nose. And then while I'm talking, it just messes with the mustache, messes with my nostrils, and then I just got to trim it. So after tonight's show, I'm going to be cutting hairs. I might do the whole thing. You might be like, damn. So yeah, because it's getting on damn nerves. But there are going to be 4 critical dates that makes the dividend world go round that you guys need to know by heart. And if you follow our show in the membership, you'll see me posting some of these dates at least once a month for the upcoming 2 months, every month, so that you get an idea of which stocks we're following right now versus which stocks we already covered from the month before. You'll be able to go and double check these, double check the dates for the ex-dividends, double check the buy-in date values, and then look at the dividend payouts. And if you're tracking these on your own, you'll also be able to get more information about payout dates so that you can kind of get an idea as to when your payment is going to come from last month's investments. Because a lot of times you invest this week and some of them pay later this week, but sometimes you invest in the month of January, you're going to be getting paid sometime in February. You might invest at the first of the month, get paid on the 30th of the same month. You might invest on the first of the month and get paid on the 3rd of the next month. You will know when you're going to get paid by looking at your payout dates. And if you're not paying attention to your payout dates, you'll be investing in some stuff, and then you'll get an email like, oh, you got paid. You're like, oh, shit. You know, which actually is a good feeling if you did a trade where you bought into a stock, the stock dipped, and then you sold it on the dip, and then a few days later you got some dividends from last month. It makes you feel a little bit better, right? But the first thing we're going to be paying attention to is our declaration date, and this is going to be when companies and have a board announcement that they're paying dividends. So they're going to state the amount and, most importantly, the other 3 dates, right? So the second one is going to be the most important one. Is going to be for what we're doing with our strategy is the ex-dividend date or the X date. And this is going to be a big one because the stock exchange sets this date, and it is the cutoff line to get the dividends. So you have to already own the stock before the ex-dividend date, because if you buy a stock on or after the ex-dividend date, you don't get the payment for that month. The person who sold it to you is going to get the payment if you get it on the ex-dividend date or after the ex-dividend date. So our entire strategy hinges on buying the stock at least 1 or more business days before the ex-dividend date. The third thing is going to be the record date. This is when the companies check its records to see who officially owns the stock and gets paid for it. It usually is 1 business day after the ex-dividend date. However, when ex-dividend dates fall on a weekend or during a holiday, the record date might occur before the holiday or before the weekend. So if you have an ex-dividend date on a Saturday, the record date might be on a Friday, and your last day to buy is on or before that Friday. Then if you have like ex-dividend date on a Monday, but Monday is a trade holiday, then you might have the record date on Friday. The last day to be counted is owning it Friday before the end of business day, so that when the ex-dividend date happens on Monday, you get paid. So you got to pay attention to that too. But while it's important for the company's books, for us as a trader, the ex-dividend date is what drives our actions. So finally, there's going to be that payment date, and this is the day that the cash actually lands into your brokerage account. And this can be a week or sometimes even a month or more after the ex-dividend date, depending on which companies that you're chasing. So the basic trade is buy the stock the day before the ex-dividend date, the business day before the ex-dividend date. Hold it overnight, and you've captured it. The right to have those dividends are now yours. The problem, and the reason this isn't free money, is something called the ex-dividend drop. Think about it logically. If a company is trading for $100 a share and it is about to hand out $2 a share in cash, the company's value is literally decreasing by that $2. So the cash is moving from the company's bank account to its shareholders. So financially, the theory is a market reality going to tell you that on the ex-dividend date, the stock's price will typically open lower by about the amount of the dividend. So the $100 stock becomes a $98 stock plus a $2 cash dividend that goes into your account. So your net worth hasn't changed at all. So where's going to be the profit? Well, the whole dividend capture strategy is going to be a bet, and it's going to be a calculated gamble that the stock price will recover from the ex-dividend drop and get back to its pre-dividend price before you need to sell it and move to the next trade. Now, one of the things that we do with our dividend rotation strategy is that we're not just diving in the day before. A lot of times it's 3 to 5 days before, because you will find that around about a week before certain ex-dividends that the stock will drop. It'll start climbing towards the ex-dividend date because people start buying in closer to the ex-dividend date. You catch that dip and you buy in. Like, for example, when Prospect Capital dropped from $2.86 a share down to $2.48 a share. You buy in at $2.48 a share. It goes up to $2.86 a share, which is where it is right now. It's recovered. But if the ex-dividend date happens at any point in time, and it's paying like 5 cents a share, so it'll drop by 5 cents. So from 286 down to 281 on the ex-dividend date. If it doesn't recover that day, that doesn't really matter because you bought at 286. You still got 30-something cents return on your investment. If you sold it, if you bought and held, you just get. But if you bought at 280, 246 and you're selling at 281, when it dropped 5 cents from 286, you made a profit, right? And then you get the dividends. That's what we aim for. Now, for those individuals that's not good at catching the right dates, that doesn't check the market on a regular basis, you might just buy PSEC because it's less than $3 a share and just say, fuck it, I'm gonna buy and hold this on, bitch. And you could. And then if you ever catch a day where it's at 246, you could just buy in just for the sake of buying in and just keep getting the dividends, which is a fantastic thing to do. You still need to diversify your portfolio, but that is a fantastic thing to do because that particular stock would be operating at 18 to 20% interest. So if you put $10,000 into that particular stock, you're likely to see $2,000 come back on it. And if you take that $2,000 that's coming back on it and put it in other places to diversify yourself, your $10,000 will spread across, well, the $2,000 payout will spread across the other 15 shares that you have, which allows you to have a more diversified portfolio. If you're going to be the person that's going to buy and hold your whole portfolio and not do our dividend rotation strategy, you could put 10 or 20 or $50,000 into a stock like Prospect Capital and take the monthly dividends and continue to build your 15 other shares or 14 other shares for your dividend rotation strategy. Be diversified. Have your oils, have your Johnson & Johnson, have your Coca-Colas, have your Teslas, have your Oracles, and still be able to split that. Not more than 20 or 30 stocks. Typically 15 is good, but not more than like 20 or 30 hand-picked stocks across 5 different markets is pretty good. Because if you have 3 or 4 out of each one of the different industries, and you have like 5 industries, that's 15. 15 or 20, right? And that's about it. And then you just continue to add to those. And then, because once you start getting like 30, 40, 50, 70, you start doing the same thing as an S&P 500. Like you start losing the diversification and you're just losing your interest rates at that point. But overall, though, you're banking on your growth, you're getting your dividends, and primarily the majority of your portfolio might be a dividend paying out scenario, but you can still benefit from growth. So you want to make sure that you put your money where you can put your money so that you're not worried about the difference. You know what I mean? And this gives you the ability to kind of switch your brain to autopilot and let it do what it do. Let it drip where the dividends are reinvested into the principal. That's what drip is. Drip, dividend, reinvested into the principal. Now, strong uptrend. Maybe the market has been having a great day, or maybe the dividend yield is so juicy that new buyers are just rushing to it at the wrong time. Those individuals who don't mind missing the one payment that while they're rushing in so that they can hold on to it as the stock gets better. But there is absolutely no guarantee that these types of things will happen. In fact, many times the stock will just keep drifting lower or trade sideways for a week or so. So if you sell before it has fully recovered, you lose on the stocks and you're going to eat into whatever the dividend was or completely erase it, where the dividend that you just received is offset by the loss of the sale. Now, this is the main risk. So a successful dividend capture isn't about collecting a dividend. It is that, because that part particularly is easy, it's actually about getting out of the trade at or above your entry price. Whatever you bought into it as long as you get out of it above what you bought into it, that's what you're worried about. So the strategy fails when the stock price doesn't bounce back, or when you bought in too high and then it takes a dip before the ex-dividend date, doesn't recover, then it takes another dip on the ex-dividend date, and you sell on the ex-dividend date. That's going to be the fails. Now, the other major risk that you're going to have to factor in is going to be transaction costs and taxes. If you have the type of portfolio that's not charging you a ton of money, your transaction cost is not going to be that much. We use Stash app, STASH, to do it, where we're basically trading ETF style, and we pay a fixed rate once a year, and we trade as much as we want. But taxes is going to be higher with money that moves than money that doesn't move. So while many brokerage accounts have commission-free trades, there's always going to be that bid-ask spread. When you buy, you pay the higher ask price, and when you sell, you get the lower bid price. So on a quick trade, this spread is a real cost that can eat up a surprising amount of your potential profits. So on top of that, since you're holding these stocks for just a few days, any dividends that you get are unqualified and they are taxed at your ordinary income tax rate. So that's going to end up being a lot more higher than the qualified dividend rate for long-term investments. Any capitals gained, you must make, or any capital gains that you make are also short-term, and they're going to be taxed at the same higher rate as well. So a dividend capture rotation is just chaining this process together. So you run the play on a stock A. As soon as you're out, you take that money and rotate it into stock B, which has an ex-dividend date covering up over 2 months. You might have to do this 5 or 10 times or even 15 times, trying to compound your satellite money by capturing multiple dividends. This takes a perfectly planned calendar and disciplined execution. If you do it right, you might hit 5 or 7 or 10 stocks in 1 month. You might lose on some stocks and gain on others, but you might be overall up for each month. The dividend payout on some of the ones that are paying closer to 20%, you might be getting a significant payout to offset any losses that you make where you're still at a surplus. Got to think about that. All right, this is where the theory is going to meet reality, because we're now going to build out the full actionable trading plan. So think of this as a hypothetical case study based on past data and future projections, a blueprint that you can learn from. The first and critical disclaimer is that the ex-dividend dates that I'm mentioning for February and March are projections, because they have not given all of the declarations for the month of March or the month of February. So they're based on a historical payment schedule of these particular companies. The companies will announce their official dates closer to the time of the ex-dividend date, usually a couple of weeks beforehand. So you must verify the actual declared ex-dividend dates from the reliable sources like your brokerage accounts or your company investor relations websites before you ever place a trade. So this plan is going to be a map, but you have to check the road conditions in real time before you start doing some trades. Now, our hypothetical portfolio, we usually use a trade value of somewhere between $10,000 and $100,000. You don't really have to. You could do this with $1,000, but your returns are going to be lower, and you don't actually see the real benefits when I tell you 20% of $1,000 is $200. You're like, shit, I make more than that, and you know what I mean? But when you start looking at a portfolio value of $100,000, where your core allocation is going to be $80,000 invested into a low-cost S&P 500 ETF like VOO, and then you're going to be using that to anchor. You're not going to touch that, but you're going to trade with $20,000 in cash. Holy crap. 20% of $20,000, that's $2,000 for every $10,000. That's $4,000 off of a 20. That means you started with 20,000, you walk away with $24,000. Now it starts thinking, it starts affecting you a little bit better when you start using larger numbers. And this is one of the reasons why we say continue to add to it, because as you build it, it gets better for you. So we're going to get ready for the dividend capture rotation strategy. And this is going to be our active risk on the capital, just the 20% out of the 100. The watch list for our potential targets is going to have our goals to build the calendar for opportunity, rotating out just $20,000 from one stock to the next. We're going to need to pick stocks with different yields, risk profiles, and most importantly, staggered ex-dividend dates, meaning that one after another, our money clears fast enough for us to buy into the next, so that we're only using the same $20,000 and any dividends that we get along the way. So here are some of the candidates that we're going to be watching for our February and March campaign. Tier number one is the stabilizers. These are lower yield, lower volatility assets, often in ETF forms or blue chip giants. The dividend is smaller, but the hope is that the stock price is more stable, giving us better chances at a quick price recovery. iShares US Treasury Bond ETF is one of the ones that we've got going across the bottom of the screen. And these are some of the ones that we typically track. This ETF holds a basket of US Treasury bonds. Its main job is stability. It pays a monthly dividend, and its ex-dividend date is incredibly predictable, almost always on the first or second business day of the month. For February 2026, we can project the ex-dividend date to be around February 2nd or the 3rd. The yield is low, but this is our opening move, a high probability trade to get a small win on a playing board. Now, I can tell you, if you're looking for higher volatility, if you bought PSEC for this month, just hold it. Leave that as your 80%, and then take the rest of it and start trading everywhere else, because PSEC is going to give you between 18 and 20%. And then you can always use the dividends from that to go and trade into everything else. That's a higher volatility, higher risk scenario, which has higher payouts. in the short term, and you can rebalance your portfolio in the long term to get you more profitability. You can even stagger that by buying into PSEC, taking the ex dividends from PSEC, putting it into Orchid Island, and taking the dividends from Orchid Island and putting that into AGNC, and getting the dividends from AGNC, putting that into ABR, getting from ABR and putting that into ARR, and you would have about 5 monthly dividend paying stock options that are above 15%, giving you an average of closer to 17% on your 17 or 18%, depending on how much more you have in prospect capital versus the others, as an average dividend payer before you start doing a dividend rotation strategy. That's nuts, but that's higher risk across real estate investment trust companies, and then you flow into some of the other stock portfolios. For example, Johnson & Johnson, more expensive though, but this is a defensive healthcare behemoth and a dividend aristocrat with a rock solid business. It's going to pay quarterly, and historically, its ex-dividend date in February falls on the 3rd week of February. So the yield won't be very big in comparison to the buy-in, but like GOVT, it offers relatively good, stable pricing, which should make the recovery part of the trade even easier. ExxonMobil and Chevron, which we just finished talking about over the past 2 months since Venezuela just got taken hostage by the United States, these energy super majors often have ex-dividend dates close together, typically in mid-February. So while energy can be volatile, these are established giants. Capturing a dividend from one is a potential play, but we have to be careful not to put too much capital in one sector at the same time. When you're starting to invest, you might have no choice but to just put all of your money on one stock, and then the next time you invest, put all your money on a second stock, and then the next time you invest, put all your money on a third stock. And over the course of the first 15 months of investing, you bought 15 different stocks. You could do that. You could start with $1,000, buy 15 different stocks, and just put a little bit of money on each one of the stocks, and then just keep growing from there. With whatever you think is best. Capturing a dividend is going to be important, but you have to make sure that you diversify at the same time. He said, what is your take on tax-free municipal bonds? We talked about that. That's the show that I told you I was going to cover next week, because I was supposed to. No, I covered something last week close to that, but I did say I was going to cover that one, but because this is the last week of January, I wanted to cover the dividend rotation strategy going into February and March, and then I told you I was going to cover municipal bonds. But if you get the municipal bonds, they're going to have lower interest rates because of the interest cuts that just happened. But if you get the municipal bonds, they're tax free. So I mean, I'm not going to say don't get them. If you're starting to invest and you want to do safer, more guaranteed investment opportunities, you can get municipal bonds. You can get government bonds, treasury bonds. You can get index, because you can get all of the local utilities and everything like that and invest in those companies, because those are slow grind, guaranteed to increase, never going to fail kind of scenarios. You're not going to get the dividend returns off of those that you would get off of the ones I've got going across the bottom of the screen, because the ones I've got going across the bottom of the screen, you might be able to spend $3 a share or less on some of them, less than $10 a share on others, less than $15 a share on others, where when you think about it, some of these stocks are cheaper than a large Coke at a McDonald's. Some of these stocks are cheaper than a pack of cigarettes at the smoke shop. All of these stocks are cheaper than a bottle of Patron at the liquor store. And you can actually be taking your poor choices in life and investing in these stocks instead, and then having a better financial future, because these are giving you 15-20% return on investment, and these stocks have been around for 20 years, 25 years. But if you're getting a municipal bond, like 3 to 5% return, yeah, you can do that. There's no problem with that. Tax free, that's good. So you might calculate the tax free portion of that municipal bond and add it to the interest rate and say, well, instead of me paying 4% taxation on this, or well, actually, instead of having like 25 or 30% taxation on this, the percentage of money that would have been taxed, which would have ended up being 4% of my profit, would actually give me an extra 4%. So if you put up $10,000, where Uncle Sam might have would have charged you $2,500 of taxes on that, and then that $2,500 worth of taxes, instead it stays with you. You know what I mean? Because if you got $10,000 worth of dividends back and they charged you 25% on that, and out of that 25%, that's $2,500. And out of that $2,500, you don't have to pay that $2,500. You might say that $10,000 technically was $12,500 because you didn't have to pay taxes on that, which brings your 10% return on 100 grand to a 12% return on 100 grand. But if it was a 5% return on 200 grand, it's actually now a 6% return on 200 grand, which is more likely with your municipal bonds actually being closer to 3%. You're looking more to the magnitude of $300,000 giving you $10,000, and then that $1,250 unrealized profit, putting your profits at closer to 4 or 5% return, not calculating inflation. So municipal bonds are there's no problem with municipal bonds. It's a safer way to go, but the lower the risk, the lower the volatility. Well, the lower the volatility, the lower the risk, and the lower the risk, the lower the profits. So in comparison to high volatility with guaranteed payouts versus low volatility and guaranteed payouts, I personally go for higher volatility because I want to make more money, make money faster. I would prefer safer, but I chase dangerous. And the reason why I chase dangerous is because these companies have been around 20, 30 years, 40 years, and they're still paying. And where like certain accounts like Prospect Capital that used to be $30 a share, that's like $3 a share right now. It's at 10% of what it used to be. Some 50-year investors are like, oh no, that account is shit, because it lost so much money over the past 30 years. Bro, I found it while it was shit to you, but to me, that's a gold mine. Because when you put $30 down to get 5 cents a share, $30 per share to get 5 cents a share, I'm putting $3 down at 5 cents a share. I'm paying 10% of what you used to pay to get the same quantity of dividends. To me, that's a gold mine, because I'm paying 10% the value of the share. If and when that stock option bounces back to $30, if I've got 100,000 shares of that son of a bitch, I just made all of that extra increase plus the dividends per share. At 5 cents a share, 100,000 shares, that's going to give me at least $50,000. And that's a monthly payout. So, there's so many different ways to invest, and I encourage you to look at all the ones that you like and all the ones that you feel comfortable with. I think Stephen was the one that was getting into the high interest savings accounts, which is fantastic to get into as well. But I talked to you guys about last time around health savings accounts. Since a lot of us are starting to get old and we're going to start leaning on our health insurance more, health savings accounts help pay for medical expenses. So if you're grabbing a health savings account, you verify that the health savings account pays for your health insurance premiums as well as your doctor's appointments. You could very well be taking your investment portfolio, building up a 20% dividend return, taking the dividends out and putting it into your health savings account that is a tax exempt account, and then build that up so that when you retire, you're going to take your health savings account and pay your health insurance premiums and your medical expenses from your health savings account. And that prevents you from having to take extra money out of your profits from your dividend rotation strategy or your core satellite portfolio and pay for any of your health issues, which puts more money in your pocket for your future. Knowing what I know now, I would have both. I would have a brokerage account that I would build up, and then I would take the money from the brokerage account and I would put it into the health savings account and build that up alongside it. So that, especially if I can establish a health savings account that allows me to buy into stock portfolios that gives me a guaranteed win twice in a row, taking my profits and putting it somewhere else where I can make more profits, so that when I do go to the doctor for poor health, when I do go to the doctor to buy $1,000 pair of glasses, it's tax-free. Profit from the principal. Then I go to the doctor every year and get new glasses instead of going once every 3 to 5 years. But you got to build your budget. So the second tier that we're going to be talking about is the mortgage real estate investments trust and BDCs. And this is where the potential income gets exciting, but the risk meter shoots way up. And that's why I talk about these, because mortgage real estate investment trust and business development companies use leverage to the interest in mortgage and private businesses to make their money, which lets them pay out very high dividend yields. But their stock prices can be extremely volatile. AG Mortgage Investment Trust, MITT, is a classic MREIT, one of the ones that we're dealing with right now. This one is going to pay quarterly dividends and often has yields in the double digits. Historically, its first quarter ex-dividend is right at the end of March, marking it a prime target for our final trade, likely around March 30th or 31st of 2026. Arbor Realty Trust, ABR, just happened, but this one is another popular MREIT. This one's focused on multifamily and commercial real estate loans. It also pays a large quarterly dividend. Based on its past schedule, we can project this one as an ex-dividend around early to mid-March of 2026. A stable interest rate investment in our 2026 portfolio could help MREITs get more profits, but they are still highly risky. Prospect Capital, which I was just telling you guys that you could by far use as a core for a high-risk portfolio, going to be important to get this one right on the nose, because PSCC is often lumped in with MREITs, but it is a business development company, or BDC. It lends money to mid-sized private companies. PSCC pays a monthly dividend, which is great for our rotation strategy, with X dates usually near the end of each month, somewhere between the 27th and the 29th. This gives us potential targets for the end of the month of February as well as March. Like MREITs and BDCs, offer high yields but come with major credit and market risks. Our tier threes are going to be our wild cards, shipping and energy. And these are highly cynical and volatile sectors. They can offer massive dividends when business is booming, but can also see their prices collapse just as fast. And these are the highest risk ones. They have the highest reward plays on the board. Zim Integrated Shipping Service, we've seen do good some months or some payouts and not do good on others. It is a container shipping company. In the past, Zim has paid enormous special dividends when shipping rates were high. It's the definition of a wild card, because if the shipping industry is strong in early 2026, its X date, which can historically be in mid to late March, could be a huge opportunity. We have seen it pay off at the beginning of the month. typically around the second, but it might shift because its date isn't guaranteed. But if shipping rates are weak because of tariffs or something to that effect, the stock could fall hard and not recover, making a capture attempt a disaster. Also, the payment amount is not guaranteed. There are some declarations, they declare a high payout, like 75 cents a share with an extra 75 cents of additional pay. Sometimes, like the most recent one, rotation. So this one is a trade that you only consider if the big picture conditions for the sector are perfect. DHT Holdings, this one is a crude oil tanker company, which with what's happening with Venezuela, you might want to look into this one. Just like Zim, its fortunes are tied to global energy demand and tanker rates. Its dividends can be very inconsistent. This is another high volatility play that requires you to keep a close eye on the energy market. So if you're already watching Shell, Chevron, and Exxon, you watch DHT Holdings as well. The 2 monthly rotational calendar blueprints here is going to be what we're going to be paying attention to. So how might we squeeze our trades with our $20,000 in a satellite capital? Well, in our first month, you're going to have your first trade of GOVT, happens on February 2nd. You're going to buy $20,000 of it the last trading day of January, which is closer to the 30th or the 31st. Your goal is going to be to capture the small, reliable monthly dividends, and then your exit plan, since GOVT is a low volatility ETF bond, the price will drop very minimalistically. You're going to place a limit sell order for the entire price or slightly higher, aiming to get out within 1 to 2 days after the ex-dividend date. Once the cash settles, we're ready for the next move. Your second trade is going to be an energy major, either ExxonMobil or Chevron. Ex-dividend dates around the 12th. Rolling your $20,000 into either one of those, you can split the money and do $10,000 into both of them, but you're going to roll it into those right before the ex-dividend date. Capture the solid quarter dividends from the blue chip energy companies, and then the price drop will be bigger on this one, but we'll set the limits to sell at or slightly above what we entered in. This might take a few days to a week to fill if you're using like TD Ameritrade, but if you're trading ETFs, like if you're using Stash App, you'll buy it on Thursday, put it up for sale on Friday, it'll be sold, and the money will clear by Monday of the next week, and you'll be able to trade it too. If you bought into it on Monday, you put it up for sale on Tuesday, the money will clear by Thursday because it's typically 24 hours from the day that you sell. Actually, you might find yourself, if you sold Tuesday morning, you might find the money cleared by Wednesday morning. But if you sold Tuesday afternoon, it might clear mid-Wednesday. And if you're not paying attention, your money's accessible on Thursday. But either way it goes, trading ETFs, you have the ability to move the money between these stocks a whole lot faster. Now, if you got the patience, you're able to do it with TD Ameritrade. But if not, it's up to you. I would buy and hold some of these. If it doesn't recover in the time frame, say the 7 to 10 days, you have to make a tough call. You want to take a small loss and free up the capital for the next trade, or hold it and wait and possibly miss other opportunities. And this is where you have to make a decision in real time. Trade number 3 is going to be that monthly payer of PSEC, which is Prospect Capital, ex-dividend date approximately around the 27th. If you successfully exited the energy trades, then you can roll straight on into PSEC before its end of the month ex-dividend date, where your capture goal here is going to be high monthly dividends. Even though this is a riskier move, PSEC being more volatile is still more guaranteed. You set your limits, you set your sell order at the entry price or above the entry price, but you're also going to have some stop losses in mind here. For example, if the stock drops by a dividend amount of even around 2 to 3%. A disciplined trader might cut their losses to prospect capital, even if it means the dividend is wiped out by that capital loss. In month 2 in March of 2026, you might find yourself in trade 4, where you're going into ABR by March 9th. You're going to take your capital from February and any dividends that you get, you're going to put that into ABR. You're going to capture ABR. It has a very attractive quarterly dividend that typically is on the rise right at the ex-dividend date. The risk here of the price not recovering is going to be a little bit higher, but the same rules are going to be applied. You're going to set your limits at your entry price or a little bit above your entry price, and then have patience, because this is going to be very disciplined trading. The high yield is going to be tempting, but it's a warning sign for high risk. We have to have respect for that understanding. Trade number 5 going to be your wild card, Zim stock, usually mid-March. This is an optional trade. You don't actually have to take advantage of it. If and only if the global shipping market looks strong, you might allocate just a portion of your income into that amount, probably about $10,000 out of your $20,000, and then put the other $10,000 somewhere else. Is an active risk management opportunity where the capturing a potentially huge dividend would work out in your favor. An immediate limit sell order at our entry price or a little bit above, and a very tight ship to have a stop loss for. And then you're going to just hope and wait. Oh, look, I did not put up. Let me put up a couple of these stocks that I was telling y'all about. Let me get this ABR stock I want y'all to know about. Oh, I did put them in there. Prospect Capital, DHT, da da da. All right, good. Now, trade 6, MITT for March 31st, gathering the capital for one last push on MITT right at the end of the quarter, capturing another high yield MREIT dividend, and this will be our last trade of the cycle. We can afford to be a little bit more patient with the price recovery here, since we don't need the money right away for another rotation. We still set our limits. We set our sell order, but we might give a few weeks into April to hit our target before we reevaluate. Now, this calendar shows the rotation in action. We're constantly moving our capital, trying to collect a salary from our satellite portfolio. But as you can see, every single step is filled with decisions and risks. Now, let's simulate the financial outcomes. And this is the most important part of tonight's show, because we're going to stop talking about theory and start talking about some hard numbers. But let me be absolutely clear. These are simulations. They're projections based on a set of assumptions, and their purpose is to show you a range of possible outcomes, not the promise of specific results. Core assumption for all the scenarios: satellite capital, $20,000. The number of trades that we're going to simulate is about 6 from our February and March calendar, using GOVT, XOM, PSEC, ABR, ZIM, and MITT, which doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to be our results, but this is something that can happen for you. An average gross yield dividend yield per trade. For simplicity, let's assume that we target trades that average a 2.5% dividend yield per capture. On $20,000, that's $500 per trade. The gross dividend target on 6 trades at $500 a trade equals about $3,000 in gross dividends. This is our target income before we account for any stock losses. Now, the one variable that we're going to change is the price recovery rate. This is the percentage of trades that we can sell the stock at or above entry rate, avoiding any capital losses. This single factor determines if the strategy is profitable or a total failure. So, scenario 1, optimistic case, 70% recovery. This is a scenario where our stock price and market timing are working well. the market is generally stable or trending up, and our chosen stocks are resilient. Successful trades of 70% of 6 is going to give us roughly 4 trades that are successful with 2 trades that are a failure. Out of the gross dividend capture, meaning the profit that we made off of this, is about $3,000 out of a month of trading $20,000. So that's a pretty steep trade, which when you think about it, that's about 15%, because you're going to get about $1,500 out of every $10,000, which is more. And that's not even annual. That's just the $3,000 that you're getting off of the month, right? Because we said, yeah. Okay, so no, that's annual. That's for the year. That's not for the month. So that's pay attention though. I don't want to confuse you. On the top successful 4, let's look at it like this. Our capital return would be when we keep our dividends. On the 2 failed trades, the stock price doesn't recover. Actually, yeah, that would be, now I thought about it, that would be for the month, because we're only talking about 2 months out of the year. We're not even talking about the whole year. Either way, back to the point. We have to sell for a loss when we're dealing with the 2 failures, and that's roughly equal to the dividend recovery, or maybe a little bit more in some situations. So let's say that a loss is going to be $500 per failed trade. This is just hypotheticals. So if we have 2 losses, we lost $1,000. So our net profit is going to be $3,000 of gross plus $1,000 of loss, gives us about $2,000. Now, in the optimistic scenario, our $2,000 satellite portfolio generated $2,000 net profit in 2 months, which is $1,000 a month. And at that rate, we would be operating at probably 5% return. But it technically calculates at a 10% return on the satellite capital for 60 days. But it would be about 5% per month. Okay. Clearly, these stock options are a whole lot higher than that, because if I would have calculated in the percentage rates of PSEC, Orchid Island, and some of the other ones, the profits would be a whole lot higher. Because if you got $20,000 worth of PSEC and you're getting 18% return on that, you would have gotten $1,800 off of every $10,000 that you put up, which means you would have made almost $3,600 off of PSEC off the 1 month, which is different than what we're calculating right now. So you would have made $3,800 off of 1 trade, putting $2,000 into PSEC, plus what you would have made off of the other trades. But just for simplicity, we're doing it like this. Now, a return on the satellite capital for just 60 months would have been about 10%. So if you're annualizing that for 2 months, this is a phenomenal return, because it is likely a unsustainable 60% annualized return on that $20,000 for the portfolio, which means out of the $20,000 that you invested, if you're getting $3,000 every 2 months, you would multiply that $3,000 times 6, and that would have been $18,000, which means your $20,000 would have been $38,000 by the end of the year. That's a lot of return. But if we're looking at the $2,000 that you got off of the platform, you're looking at the $2,000 that you would have got. Even still, that $2,000 in 60 days would have been multiplied by 6, and that would have given you $12,000 on top of $20,000, which would put you at $32,000. Still good, right? But this shows you that if everything works in your favor more often than not, this is a powerful upside when everything does go correctly. Now, In a scenario for the pessimistic person where there's a 33% recovery price, let's look at a tougher environment. Market's very choppy, Trump's doing all kinds of bullshit, your luck isn't as good as you would have hoped, and you're very real. This is going to be a very realistic scenario for a lot of individuals who, especially if you don't pay attention, you have 33% of successful trades, which is about 2 good trades, 4 bad trades. Again, the total quantity of possible you would have gotten is $3,000. But again, when we start talking about 4 bad trades, you lost $2,000. So again, you have $1,000 after losses. This is a pessimistic but still positive scenario because you're walking away with about $1,000 of net profit after everything has happened. That's a 5% return on your satellite investment for 2 months. And if you multiply that by 6, that still would have gave you $6,000 out of the year, which means your $20,000 would be upward of $26,000 by the end of the year. A more realistic annualized return of about 30% of your dividend rotation strategy, not your core satellite strategy. The core of the satellite that would have been getting 10% of the S&P 500 would have been giving you $8,000 on your $80,000 added to the whatever you're getting from your dividend rotation. Big difference. You're still getting a significant quantity from the money that's not moving, and then you're rotating out everything else. Still respectable outcomes, but you're going to notice the drastic difference between making $3,000, making $2,000, and potentially making $1,000 because your profits are cut off. But it's going to show you how lower recovery rates directly hammers the bottom line. It's a lot of work and a lot of risk for a much smaller payoff. That motivation and the washout are going to be 2 different scenarios that encourages a lot of the wealthier people who have more to deal with than micromanaging their portfolio do buy and holds instead of doing dividend rotation strategies. But for those of us that are starting up that's trying to build our wealth fast, dividend rotation strategies work to build your wealth fast because you can every month get a hit and get you an increase. And again, 5% a month is still better than 5% a year from the bank or 3% right now is what the banks are doing for the year. So let's talk about that washout, because this is going to be a brutal reality failure for a lot of individuals that really don't pay attention and grab at the wrong times. In this scenario, every dividend capture trade dreads this particular scenario because it has negative impacts on your plan. This is where the strategy completely falls apart, and assuming a dismal 0% recovery rate on your riskier trades and maybe a 50% on your safer ones and an average out about a 20% overall recovery rate, where your successful trades, let's be generous and say like 1 good one and all the rest of them are a flop. Out of $3,000 that you could have got, you've only got $500. In this case, after the dozens of hours of research and planning and activities and trading, you've netted a measly $500 in 2 months' time, which you multiply that by 6, you got $3,000 for the year. And that's before taxes. You got to remember that part. So at a high ordinary income rate, that $500 probably could be easily shrunken to just $300 or $350. And at that point, you have asked yourself, was all of this work worth it? You took a huge amount of capital, you risked it for a return that barely beats the high yield savings accounts. And that's one of the reasons why they start doing a lot of buy and holds. But if you're smart about this and you're paying attention to the ones that are really hitting good, you're going to see yourself with a lot more effective returns. And it can get even worse, because if a stock has a sharp drop because of a bad news that's happening, it hits right at the ex-dividend date, you could lose much more than just breaking even. And then the dividend amounts leading to an overall net loss for the entire 2-month campaign, where you started with $20,000 and now you end it with $10,000 or $5,000. These simulations prove one thing: the profitability of this strategy lives and dies by the price recovery. And anyone who tells you that this is just about collecting dividends is either uninformed or not telling you the whole truth, which is why we like to give you everything. Your job as a trader isn't just to find the dividend, it's to find the stocks that have the highest chance of bouncing back after the dividend is paid. So we've touched on the risk throughout, but I want to gather them here into a clear and final warning. You must understand and respect these four horsemen of dividend capture failure. Price drop risk, because this is the number one risk that we just simulated. The stock price failing to recover after the ex-dividend date is the main way you lose money. How do you manage this? Through careful stock selections, favoring stable companies in uptrends, patience, and using disciplined stop losses to a lot of your trade orders to keep a small loss from becoming a catastrophic one. Tax inefficiency. This is a guaranteed cost. All of your gains, both dividends and stock appreciation, will be taxed at your highest marginal income tax rates if you're doing the rotations. This takes a significant bite out of your net return compared to long-term investing. So the only way to manage this is to be aware of the factors. You want to factor it into your profit math. Don't be fooled by the gross number. It is the net after tax profit that actually matters. Your transactional cost. This is going to be your silent killer. While commission might be zero, the bid ask spread is not. For a stock trading at $50 and a bid might be $49.98 and the ask margin might be 50.02. If you buy and then sell, you've lost 4 cents per share. So just on the spread, when you're rotating thousands of dollars multiple times, these small costs add up and can create a hurdle on your trades and have you clear just a break-even amount in scenarios where you should have been ultimately up. So you manage this by trading highly liquid stocks like OXM, where the spreads are tight, and avoid illiquid stocks where spreads can be huge. Timing and execution is going to be better because a fat finger error, a badly timed market order, or getting distracted by a hot date and missing your exit can all turn a good trade into a bad one. And this strategy is going to require focus and precision. The management here is going to be simple. Use limit orders for your entire set of entries and for all of your exits. And then set your prices in advance and set aside focus time to manage your trades around the ex-dividend dates. You might want to do it overnight before you go to bed, before you wake up or after you wake up in the morning, before you start going to the gym and getting breakfast and everything to that effect, which means that you might need a house of peace. Because if you're looking at the stock market before the stock market starts moving, you need to not have your children bouncing off the walls. You need to not have your wife nagging you about stuff that you can't deal with right now. You need to make sure that the money is good. If you're in a good relationship, your partner is looking at it while you're asleep, so that when you look at it, when you wake up and your partner's asleep, y'all can compare notes in the afternoon during dinner. I seen it go up. Well, I seen it go down. That means we know the volatility change, right? And you want to make sure that all your trades are exclusively focused on these ex-dividend dates. Don't try to do this as a casual strategy. If you're going to do the rotation, you have to pay attention to the rotation times. If you're going to do buy and hold, you can be a little bit more casual. You can check them every day in the middle of the night and then see what they look like and set up a buy when the stock drops. But if you're going to stick to it with the rotation, you want to stick to it by buying in and keeping all of your stocks flowing. So what's the big takeaway here? First, the core satellite framework is an incredibly smart and sensible way to structure your investments. It gives you a foundation of stability while creating space for tactical risk management opportunities. Second, the dividend capture rotation is a powerful but high risk tool. It isn't a passive strategy. It is an active trading strategy that demands research, discipline, and a healthy respect for the risk. It is a calculated bet on post-dividend price recovery, a bet that you can and often will lose. We won more than we lost over the past year, made a significant return on investment. The third thing that we're going to be looking at is where you build a detailed, transparent blueprint for how you might run this strategy over February and March and potentially going into April and May of 2026. Because we've picked our targets, we've planned our calendar, and most importantly, we're running realistic simulations every single month at the end of the month for the next 2 months so that we can kind of see what our projections are going to look like. And we put all of our results into the membership. This is going to give you both the tempting upsides and the painful downsides. This is not a guarantee of income. It is a case study in how to execute the plan. The plan is going to be your map, but you're going to be the pilot who has to fly through the turbulent weather of the live stock market. And this strategy isn't right for everyone. If you're a passive long-term investor, a simple core and hold approach is likely your best path. Like I told you at the beginning of the show, you can easily buy into all of the stocks that I've got going across the bottom of the screen, hold them, take the dividends, and only invest in whichever stock dips so that you can get that stock at a cheaper price. When it recovers, you've got growth in your portfolio. And that gives you the ability to expand on your core satellite. It gives you the ability to expand on your entire portfolio. You could end up owning all 50 of these stocks. You could end up owning every single one of them, which gives you the ability to manage them however you like. But if you're doing it in a tier system, like I said, the most volatile one, Prospect Capital, almost 20%. Orchid Island is the next one up. If you're going to go from high volatility to less high volatility to less high volatility and taper it down that way, the majority of your portfolio is going to be operating at 18% return, the highest risk. That is a very risky portfolio to have. But Prospect Capital has been around for almost as long as I've been alive. And so has Orchid Island, so has AGNC, so has MITT. All of the stocks that have been here longer than I've been alive. So we clearly could invest in these stocks, and we can clearly make money off of these investment opportunities while diversifying into other stock options, which could in fact give us the capabilities to expand each one once a month. Take all of the dividends from last month's payouts and put them into one upswing every month. It doesn't have to be the same one every month. We could set financial goals for ourselves where we want all of our stocks to end up being over $500 because we're just starting out. We might say, well, we want all of our stocks to be over $10,000 because we're just starting out. When we invest new money into the platform, we might put our new money directly on that high 18 to 20% interest rate, and then just let the dividends rebalance the portfolio. That's a strategy. It's a volatile strategy, but it's still a strategy, and it is a type of strategy that could allow you to gather more capital faster and then spread your portfolio out. Now, at some point, you're going to reach a point where you're going to have to take a lot of this money and put it into your health savings account so that you can build your health savings account the same way. You might have to divide your money and start putting half of your money into your health savings account, the other half of your money into your dividend rotation account. But whenever you decide to start diversifying your investment portfolio so that you have money for your health when you get old and you have money for your standard of living when you get old, when you quit working, your standard of living, including your health, will be fully covered between your health savings account and your brokerage account, where you don't have to work anymore. Your standard living is covered by the profits that you make. That's the overall goal. That's the expectation. You find yourself at $500,000, $1 million, or whatever, and you find yourself getting 20% return on that, which is almost 200 grand, and you find yourself reinvesting that 200 grand into the rest of rebalancing the rest of your portfolio. And out of the 200 grand that's rebalanced into your portfolio, you might take 20 grand a year and put it into your pocket to cover your standard of living. You're still setting yourself up for a future where you don't need for nothing. Because at any point in time, you can stop investing and say, yeah, I'm 65, 70 years old. I want to live off of this now. Right? And just stop investing, take out the profits, not the principal, the profits, and just put that on a better life to live. Or if you want to just expand on everything and start going into real estate and spreading everything around and building up the type of legacy so that your kids can benefit from whatever you've already built, you can do that as well. You can still take all of this stuff, set you up a trust, put it into a trust, and now have the trust control that, where the beneficiary gets the dividends. And if you're doing a trust, you want to say that 50% of the dividends are going to be dispersed to the beneficiaries at certain rates, and the remaining 50% gets reinvested. And by doing that, you're guaranteeing that the trust will never run out of money. No matter how many generations down the line, only 50% of the dividends will be dispersed to the beneficiaries, and the remaining 50% will be reinvested. So if you have a $1 million trust that's paying out $200,000, only $100,000 of it will be divided between the beneficiaries. But if you got people dying and health insurance is being claimed and $1 million policies going into the thing, and now you got a $10 million trust that's paying out $1 million a year, and only 500,000 of that is going to be divided between the beneficiaries, you start looking at how the beneficiaries' way of life starts getting way better. Because if each person is getting 50 grand a year, they don't have to work. Now you have a whole generation of people in your family that don't have to work. And out of their 50 grand, they're paying for their own life insurance policy, so that if one of them passes, that benefits the beneficiaries. You start building on the lifestyle of the Rockefellers. First generation wealth, you're always deciding whether or not you're going to live for your own life or you're going to live for your next generation. But second and third and fourth generation wealth is supposed to be taught how to take what you did and double down on the next generation. You don't get the benefit from seeing how well they benefit from what you did because you're dead already. But first generation wealth, you can make it to a stable lifestyle, so that even when you die, if you didn't set up anything, you can at least say, fuck it, let probate fuck with that. You know, it is what it is. But again, when we start talking about, because we're going to be talking about tomorrow about Japan, and next week we're going to be talking about South Korea. When you start talking about going to another country and you start talking about places like Japan and South Korea that has a digital nomad visa expecting you to have like $70,000 income, $70,000 a year income. Even if you're living on $3,000 a month, a $70,000 income, substantially looking at probably $5,000 or $7,000 a month. You're now in a position to clearly have to have a $500,000 portfolio to be paying you that much money every month. But again, like I said before, if you've got a bank account in that country already, and let's say you've built up over the years $250,000 in that account, you can start talking to people over there about what kind of visa they would afford you for an extended stay if there's $250,000 in your bank account. And if there's $250,000 in your bank account and $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 a month being sent into that same account, where that account never depreciates below $100,000, like, what kind of opportunities you have for that? They'll let you know. Either way, you have to always do your research, right? If you have risk tolerance and discipline and the desire to add an active income generating layer to your satellite portfolio, this is a strategy that, when done in the right market, has the potential to deliver significant results. So I hope that this breakdown has been very valuable for you guys, because the goal here is always to arm you with the knowledge and data to make a smarter and more informed investment decision. Now I want to hear from you guys. What high yield dividend stocks are you using in your watch list for the next quarter? Are there any MREITs or BDCs or other income plays that you are looking at? Drop those in the comments below, because Michael's going into real estate. Let's develop a good conversation, keep it going, and help each other out with finding better ways to make money for us. And again, if you guys found value in our analysis, make sure that you subscribe for more guides on average advanced investment strategies and above average results. Because when we start focusing on another way, there's always another way. I know y'all grew up on that age-old saying, where there's a will, there's a way, but there's always another way. You guys got to look for it. With that being said, I want to start off by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. And then fellas, I give you this information to help y'all become higher value men, just not just by improving your income, but also improving your decision-making skills. Because when you find the things in your life inside of your control that you don't like, that you can change, and you proactively put the effort into changing that, you can then navigate around the things that are outside of your control. And ladies, while this is a male-driven podcast from the male's perspective, you too can get the information that you need to make yourselves higher value women by finding out what it is that you are looking for the end goal of your life, the 20-year plan of your life, and then developing a strategy on how you yourself can acquire that 20-year success. And then if you find a partner that has a similar mentality than you, then now the two of y'all can come together and strive for the same goal and get there sooner, way faster, which actually shows a level of effort that you bring to the table. Your value is a life plan of success. Not a lot of women know that. You know, if your life plan is to benefit from somebody else's efforts, you're not bringing value to the relationship. But if your life plan is your physical and financial investment into the success of the relationship, where retirement in 10 years and retirement in 20 years is the goal, and you're willing to put forth the effort to meet that goal, you can find a partner with the same drive and same mentality, and y'all can both grind it out to that goal. And when you do that, you'll see yourself succeeding twice as fast, because one $50,000 income can only get you so far, but two $50,000 incomes under the same financial standard of living will get you twice as far, twice as fast. With that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow night.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. That's my personal command. I'm not mounted on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.